Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase Livestream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. And for the next, hour or so, give or take, we're going to try to knock off as many of the tech tips that I've been promising to knock off for about the last 4 live streams and have not gotten around to, as well as any of your own questions. Please think of this as our office hours for ComicBase. And please post your comments, questions, etc. in the chat at ComicBase TV. I will hit as many of these as I possibly can before the end of the show. But I definitely want to... I have one starred that I absolutely must answer because I've been putting them off just darn long. But anyway, before we get going on that one, just a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to say hi to everyone here. I know Richard Scott was in here earlier. Mike Beam is first in the current chat iteration. Tim from the Pacific Northwest. Tim Kelbreth joining us here. Xanadu Comics. By the way, Xanadu Comics, I want to say I just was watching a retrospect of people's favorite old comic book stores that they're not around anymore. And your name came up. So you are well remembered on that one by at least some old folks on YouTube. Ron Weinberg, welcome from Toledo. Jet City Comics from Washington, our moderators, and finally in the house here. Greg Hecht. So we should have a less chaotic than the last couple shows show, hopefully along. But anyway, so yeah, let's get into it. First tip, and I want to make this one tips from basics to advanced because I want to make sure that there's something of interest for everyone, regardless where you came in. So a little bit behind the scenes things. Well, first of all, if I'm squinting a lot, I must share, and this goes down to hashtag Nashville problems. This was Hot Chicken Week out here in Nashville, where it's like 40 or so restaurants all do their special hot chicken dishes. They have a competition in the local paper and so forth do it. But at the end of the whole thing, I wound up with some leftover chicken from Hattie B's, which is the famous OG one. And of course, it was the hottest one they know how to make, because I thought, well, the Hot Chicken Week had really not delivered on the heat level to my liking before. And so it's left over, and like an idiot an hour or two ago, I picked up one of the leftover pieces, and I figured I'm just gonna start munching on this thing. Of course, your eyes immediately start watering, your nose starts running, and here's the horrible part, I then went up and dabbed my eyes with my hot chicken encrusted eyes and basically maced myself. So if I'm doing a lot of squinting, that's what's going on today, because boy genius over here couldn't figure that one out. Anyway, with that said, tip number one, which I want to share for everyone here, and goes to all levels, is if you have anything at all that's going on with ComicBase that you think like, I just got this weird, stupid problem, please, for the love of everything, call us. It's one of the main ways that we find out what real people are doing with our product, because we've been using it a very long time ourselves. We feel like we're pretty good getting around the whole thing, and we've dealt with a lot of things over the years. Usually, if there's a problem we can just make better, we just change the program to make it better. But one of the most important things we've got as software developers to keep us honest is hearing straight from you what's going on with you. And because especially if you're coming in new, if this is a brand new program for you, you've got a different perspective than we do now, and you have a very important perspective. You might say it's a much more important perspective than ours. And it's a hard one for us to recapture. So if something that you are seeing is just confusing, you don't get it, or whatever else, we are about the only software or technical company you will encounter in the modern age that you can actually just pick up a phone and call us. 408-266-6883. Actual humans will pick up the phone, and they will help you out with your problem. But more importantly, that goes down into, it becomes the headline of our, we have a staff, every week with the folks on there, and the number one item that leads off everything is, so, all right, so what are we hearing from, the tech support and the sales lines about what things are people running into trouble with, and how do we smooth those out? That's actually the most important item on our weekly staff agenda. So, please let us know. 408-266-6883 is the phone number. If you prefer email, support@comicbase.com. And if you just want to write directly to me, I'll put my info up here. P. Bickford at human-computing.com. That's actually my email. And if we can help you out with anything, or just like I say, if anything's just weird, confusing, just you have a question about how to do something, let us know, because that's the important stuff that we want to make sure is as easy as possible with the program. All right, so that's enough of the intro on that one. All right, so Oh, the other thing I was going to say about this is we also, as we're going over the staff talk in our meetings, it actually gives us some pretty interesting ideas, which I'll probably comment on a couple of these days. And you'll probably see some of these ones as little incremental feature creep releases in upcoming versions of ComicBase over the next couple of weeks. Because, like I say, it's been kind of like that person had a problem with this one, but what if we did this? Would that have solved it for them? And so it's like, yeah, you'll see some neat stuff. All right, so let's start with the basics, right? How do you? And this one, because we sold a lot of copies of ComicBase, over the Christmas break, especially. A lot of people are asking, just hey, how do I install this thing? It is, because if you came in from the idea of like it's a phone app or things like that, where you just tap the thing on the App Store and you're basically running it, installing software on your desktop, just a little bit more involved, but it is a thing that's worth going into a little bit. Basically, the way you're going to go, and let me go and see if I can fire up my demo PC, and let me go ahead, switch over that for just a second. Okay, here we are. So ComicBase, and let me go ahead and put myself in the show here. All right, there we go. ComicBase is desktop software fundamentally. It's Windows software. It runs on your computer, which has a lot of really good advantages in terms of being fast and powerful, and also keeping your data so it's your data. It's not just data you're renting on the server. So we can do a lot of really amazing things because it is desktop software, but of course it means that you do need to install it. So when you first buy ComicBase, we take you through a number of screens which say things like, okay, great, to go get your downloads, go over to your registrations over here, and we have a link there, which probably, if you're like, well, pretty much everyone, you clicked right on past because you're anxious to get started, and so you weren't looking for a link, you were just looking for a big button. So that's actually probably something we're going to change in the near future. But you basically go up to comicbase.com, and let's load this up, comicbase.com. There we go. And yeah. Okay, fine. I don't know. All right, sorry. This is browser stuff. All right, you're going to go down under My Account and go to the registration section down here. And what we're going to do here, and I'm going to switch over to me for just a second so I can log in secretly and not show you single thing on my computer. But let me see here if I can also make it so I can see what I'm doing, so I can do this behind your back. Ha ha ha. All right, we'll see. So what we're going to do here is when you go to comicbase.com and you go down to My Account and Registrations, or if you just bought the software, there'd be a handy dandy link which would take you straight there. All right, I think we've got this. Hold up. Remember me, and now I'm ready to show you. Okay, there we go. And no, do not save my stuff. All right, so you're about to now see a fantastic thing of under My Account Registrations. Here's a bunch of software that I own. Strangely enough, I as the owner of the company am someone who owns the last several versions of ComicBase. But anyway, what you're going to do to download it is you're just going to click this green download button right here. And what that will do is it'll take you to a screen where it'll download the program installer right there. ComicBase 2025 Archive Edition, etc. Click on that. It'll start downloading. Just takes a minute. And when you do that, if you're on basically like, the default for pretty much everyone when you're downloading software is it's going to go to your downloads folder. But basically you'll see a little, depending on your browser, a little icon up there, with there's the thing when downloading, and then you're just going to click that to download it, and then that'll start running the whole thing, and you're good to go. So a couple things about this one. Number one, and I'm not going to do this right now because it's already installed. But anyway, a couple of things, and this is actually kind of like a pro tip and we want to sharing with our own tech support guys on this one, is if you're ever wondering through any browser pretty much on the planet how to get to the download folder, it's funny because the actual place you'd go to, it varies quite a bit as far as like what twitchy little icon you've got to get there. This is where it looks like in Brave. It looks like something else in Chrome. It looks like something else in Edge or Firefox or whatever else. Sometimes it's a little menu down here, etc. But all of them that we were able to test have one thing in common: is if you will hit Control J, it will always take you to your downloads folder, which is a handy thing to know. So if you're helping your grandpa out or whatever the thing is, you just want a quick way of saying, how do I get to my download folder? That's a pretty good way to get there. Just, in your browser, go to Control J. And then once you're there, basically double click the installer program, run that, hit next to everything, and you're going to be good to go. And when you're all done, it's going to launch the program and install the pictures and things like that and so forth. Anyway, some other tips I'm going to say about just general downloading of installing of software process just for PCs for anyone who's just, again, this is not something you do every day. Maybe it's a new computer or whatever else. A big help is go ahead and close other windows and other programs before you get too involved in the process of installing stuff. Some programs can be holding other files on your computer open. A lot of times it's just confusing having the huge number of windows open at one time. It's easier to kind of focus on what you're doing. But then another thing that is very, very helpful is if you're running any non-Windows security software, so you're running McAfee or Norton or Bitdefender or any of those things like that, look for the setting in that software whenever you're installing software. This only applies when you're installing, so you're meant to be installing new things on the machine. Is look for the thing to tell your antivirus software to take 5. Shut your active scan down for 10-15 minutes, because what you're doing when you're installing software is you're telling Windows to copy a few jillion files onto your disk, and if your third-party software is going to be doing all sorts of weird random scanning and cross-checks and things like that, at minimum, it's going to take quite a bit longer than it needs to. And at worst, depending on how sketchy your antivirus software is, it could actually be thinking, oh, I don't know, I haven't heard of this file before, and it could be deleting it as we're installing it, which is no bueno. It will not cause anything good to happen. Bitdefender back in the past used to have some kind of machine learning based really, really retarded algorithm for finding things they thought were viruses. And at a couple different times in ComicBase's history, we were tripping them up because we were installing a picture file named virus.jpg, which was, of course, the cover of a series from Dark Horse Comics, from a movie by the same name. And they were flagging the entire installation as a virus itself because they were retarded. Anyway, so in general, with all these things, shut down your antivirus when you mean to be installing things. I mean, by all means, keep your antivirus running when you're not doing that. When you're just running normally, but when you do mean to be doing an installation, shut it down. Say, hey, just turn yourself off for 10-15 minutes, and your life will generally get much smoother. And then the last tip I want to give you for when you're installing stuff, the latest versions of ComicBase, we did something brand new over Christmas, where we went and we introduced the Express Plus, Professional Plus editions of ComicBase. In addition to even the free version now includes hundreds of thousands of cover images, because we really just came to the conclusion that in this day and age, it's impossible to be a comic collector without having that kind of photo reference laying around. So you can tell what's the A version, the B version, the C version, etc., of every darn comic that's out there these days. And so there's more amounts of cover reference with the different versions. And when you get to the archive edition, there you're not looking at little tiny thumbnail reference pictures. You're actually looking at full-sized images of the comic books in question. And for basically everything that we've ever seen a copy of in our entire lives, which is at this point just short of 1.1 million comic books. But as of ComicBase, as of basically Christmas time, we decided that even the free version of ComicBase, we're going to include around 200,000 cover images from all the biggies just built right into the program. They tend to be quite small, but they're enough so you can help distinguish those different versions, everything. And it also helps you print on reports and labels and things like that. So it's a big, big help. But it's also something where, remember, yes, they're very, very small files. They don't take up a lot of space, but at the same time, you don't want your antivirus software slowing you down trying to scan 200,000 images, because otherwise something that should take 10-15 minutes to install could take hours. So do shut that stuff down. And then finally, the last thing I want to say about that is, if you're running this on a laptop, make sure your power settings aren't set so aggressively that if you wander away and grab yourself a Coke, that your computer will have gone to sleep in the meantime. Because if you're on kind of a slow internet connection and it's still downloading those pictures, and you walk away and your machine's gone to sleep in the middle of it, it is downloading a couple gigabytes of data there. So depending on how fast or slow your internet connection is and how aggressive your laptop power settings are set to, your machine might have actually gone to sleep in the middle, at which point it will have aborted the transfer, and you'll get a note saying that, oh no, we had a problem transferring the file, and you have to try it all over again. So save yourself a little bit of grief. If your laptop is set on if it's running at your desk, if you're not under duress where you're down to your last erg of energy left in the whole thing, set it so it doesn't go to sleep for half an hour, or at the very least, so turn off the screen if you must, but don't have the whole machine go to sleep, especially not if it's on AC power. There's just no need for it. So but I believe if you use some of the default settings that are installed by some of the vendors out there, some of them will shut it down on as little as 5 minutes, which if you have a very slow internet connection is maybe not enough to download a 1 or 2 gigabyte file. So anyway, that's something that comes up every once in a while. It comes up on our help line, so we want you to know. All right, let's do a quick check here. So let's see here. Some other questions came into the thing here. We have Doug Wren says, ComicBase TV, my F3 jump screen problem seems to have fixed itself. No, it didn't fix itself. We fixed it. Thank you for reporting that one. There was a slight glitchiness with, there's a command in ComicBase if you ever want to jump straight to a particular issue in a long title. And let me go ahead and show you this one, because if we're going to talk about it, we may as well show it. So let's say you've got a title like Action Comics, something that's just god-awful long. So here's Action Comics, and as you guys know, the Action Comics runs well over 1,000 issues. You can actually use, there's a command called jump to issue under here. It's under the edit bar down here, which I believe it's under. Is it under edit, or am I misremembering? Oh, sorry, under items. Jump to item right down here, or the shortcut that everyone uses is just F3. And if you do that one, then you can just say, let's say I want to bump down to issue 750. You just type in 750, and boom, you go straight there. So instead of scrolling all day to get down to these things, you can just jump straight to them. And it works also for variants and things like that. So yeah, it's a nice little shortcut just for moving around in the program. So F3 or item jump to issue is a good one there. All right, let me get back to the chat and see how we were doing on that. Tyler T is joining us here from Selkirk, New York. Welcome. Steve Dazinger says, if you do get that modify repair while trying to install it, maybe the recent change hasn't propagated everywhere. Give it a few minutes when downloading, or Pete made a mistake. Yes, this is probably a good time to talk about the fact that we are pushing new updates to ComicBase more or less constantly. So we work on it 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Well, 51 weeks a year. And we're not heathens. We do take Christmas off, but we're always working on something new, and it's very, very frequent that we will do little tiny incremental updates for things, like fixing F3 behaviors if they're set in particular fields and such. So if you want to get every little last thing that we're doing and be notified of every tiny little change that we make, the way to do it is to go in ComicBase. Let me switch over that machine and zoom in and go up to the setup menu, and under preferences, there's an options here when you check for updates. So I have mine set to go ahead and check for updates every time a database is open. So basically, just every time you launch ComicBase, more or less. And the important thing here is if you say check for interim updates, what it'll do is it'll check not only for program updates, not only the big ones, but it'll also check for the ones that are just the little bitsy changes that we do from day to day. About once a quarter, we will roll all of the important stuff into one big update, just so, for all the people who don't like constantly updating your program, you don't need to keep doing it. But if you do like seeing all the little stuff and being part of every little thing that we're doing, if you say check for interim updates and you just launch the program, or you say internet check for updates, in the commands, then you will get to see if there's anything at all new from the last time that you had download the program. You'll get to see every last thing that we're doing, and that, depending on your mood, can be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's fun, but honestly, if with other programs like my web browser, if I was getting prompted to update every 2 seconds, it would make me nuts. Which is why we stage our big required updates. That's only about once a quarter. So the latest required update is 25.5. And if you guys have gone internet check for updates anytime this year, you've already installed that, and that's the version you're running right now. Oh, Andrew joins us from Andrew Dentremont joins us from Ottawa, Canada. Welcome. Andrew says, "Is there a way to have full-size coverage display on the same window ComicBase is running in?" It's a request we've gotten. It's a good one. This is one that's particularly important for people who have multiple multi-screen setups, and I am sympathetic to this one. It's a little bit challenging for us. So basically, when you click on this one right here, when you click on if you have the archive edition, you can click on the picture and you'll see as big a cover as we've got here, and it'll pop up on whatever your main screen is. Now, it is possible for us to get this to happen on other screens. It's just a little twitchy, and so we'll probably make that a thing in a future version, or but that's not something that we're doing currently. Currently, it's locked down, so it's on your main screen of your computer. So if you're running 2, 3, 4, or 5 monitors, it's always going to be on the main one. So yeah, it's a good feature request. It is on our list of things to look into, and we may make that happen. At the moment, though, because this is not a draggable window, as soon as I click anywhere else, that window is going to go away. That's not something we can do immediately, but we'll see if we can't make that happen in the future for you. All right. Let's see here. Tyler T says, he says, "I really miss when I could place my cursor on a thumbnail on the cover, which pop up the full size. Is there any chance it come back in the near future?" Yeah, the thing that did that. And so we used to have, and this was a really cool feature in ComicBase. I personally love this one to death. I was very, very proud of the little micro mechanics of doing it. What it would do, so if I could describe it for people, is if you were moving your mouse around and you hesitated over a picture for, it was like 1.5 seconds. It was a very, very finely timed thing. You would see that this thing would zoom up to about half size, and then you could drag your mouse down here and it would scroll the pictures. It would scroll the larger covers under your mouse in real time as you went, and then you could click on one to see it full size. And that was really cool. And honestly, it was part of a release we did called, the code name on it was Minority Report, largely because we stole that exactly. If you ever watch the film Minority Report with Tom Cruise, we stole the idea of that feature from the scene where Tom Cruise's character is going into the hotel, and he's trying to get the name of the a guy off the registry. He's trying to get it. He's trying to compel the hotel clerk to give it to him. And so basically the guy's like, "Where's Crow?" And the guy's like, "Hey man, ain't no Crow sitting here." And he flips his gun around the counter just to show me he's serious about it. And the guy goes, "Whoa, okay." And then he basically, because everything in Minority Report is all done by waving things over invisible keyboards, and these are all virtual screens. Everything, he basically was doing this kind of movement on the whole thing, and these covers were flicking into view. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it was the coolest thing ever, except it doesn't work at all with touch panels. So as soon as you have an actual interface that requires, because we don't live in Minority Report world. I mean, maybe if this was on the what was the Apple VR glasses or something, we could bring it back just for that or something. But no, in our real life, there's no idea of I'm dragging the mouse a little bit above where I'm touching. And so anyone who has a touch screen, and which got to be increasingly popular, tablet-based interfaces, convertible laptops, anything like that, that kind of, there's no such thing as waving your finger above it. It's when you're tapping, and tapping and dragging it and pushing down is a drag. There's what we were simulating there with the mouse is the idea of hovering. And that was pretty cool, but it does not work for touch devices. And so when we did the new revision of ComicBase for ComicBase 2020, when we basically revisited the entire interface, and we got to do a lot of new things here, like you could very much control how big these thumbnails are, and do a lot of other fine-grained things like that. But we had to very much recreate the interface in a way that it would work with touch screens, and so that's one kind of cool behavior that we had to give up, unfortunately. But anyway, I'm glad someone remembered that one, because I was just ridiculously proud of the little micro interactions that made that all work. Because it was a ferocious set of little you know, there were things like, you had to make sure that, if you were clicking and you had activated it, that it would become visible on your screen, but not obscured by your mouse. And as you were dragging up and down, you were allowed to jigger your finger a certain amount left and right before, which was just, the normal movement of your hand shaking. You couldn't treat it like it was moving up and down a completely straight line. So, it was a certain point where, like, if you kind of flicked off to the side, it would go away. But as long as you were dragging around a certain path, it would keep the thing on screen. It was a lot of really neat stuff to that one. But yeah, unfortunately, the main thing that happened is it just doesn't work at all with touchscreens. So that kind of, those came around, and then that behavior went away. All right. Andrew Dutchman says, "Well, the chance of adding more fields for ID labels. Lovely to be able to include the cover date." Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's so ID labels. And let me go ahead and pull one of those up right now. ID labels are something I'm a big proponent of. In other words, no comic book gets stored in my collection without getting an ID label printed on it. So, for instance, and by the way, I'll show you, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to also show you a quick way to print an ID label of anything. Is just go and click on an issue or one or more issues. If you right click and then zip down to the bottom here and say identification labels, or even quicker than that, just say F6, it'll take you up and you can print ID labels. Now let me go ahead. I guess we'll leave this one up for now. You choose your template, what type of labels you're printing on. I guess I was printing on every 5161s last time I was demoing this feature. And you've got an option of what things you're going to include on the screen here. So you can have a cover picture. You can have the storylines, writer and artist. You can so forth. You can include a barcode, right? But these things typically are going to go at the top. You're going to basically splat them on the top of the comic book, and it helps you as you're filing to know what you're printing. So when we look at this one, let me go ahead and just print one out on screen so you can all kind of see what it looks like. And go ahead and do that. Come on back. Do I have everything? I'm not sure if I have this thing configured right for printing, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm pissing it off right now. All right, so I may not. Sorry, this is the demo computer is set up with weird virtual printers, so I may not be able to show this one just now. But anyway, but the label itself is pretty tight. Between the whole goal is we want to be able to show the cover as big as it's possible to fit, which basically means like 0.85 inches on like a Avery 5161 label is pretty typical for that sort of thing. We also need to be able to wedge a barcode in there, and we want to make the title as big as possible, and also show the title and what was the other bit that we have to show in there as big as humanly possible. The name of the exact issue and its condition. Those are the things that absolutely must be on there. And if they are any smaller than necessary, then that's a big problem for us. The other stuff in there tends to be fighting very hard for whatever the leftover space is. Sorry, I'm just managed to hose up the printing queue on my demo machine here. So now I need to convince it to come back around. Come on, computer, you can do it. There you go. All right. So as I'm causing that one to come back. So because we're fighting so hard for the print space, it's hard to work that in. The notes field, which can be very minimal. It can just be something like the first appearance of Colossus or something like that. Or, the notes field basically is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the particular format that we're using, because what we do is we tack on, so you think about the label here. You've got a picture. You've got a big, bold title, as big as bold as we can make it, which, depending on how convoluted the title is, if it's the new and important, the new and improved all-time best adventures of Nina Paley, #1 variation A, even the name of the title can wind up turning into 6-point type in order to squish that all in the whole thing. The barcode has got to fit along the bottom of the whole thing. And within that thing, you've got a strip that's probably about 3/8 of an inch tall and up to maybe an inch or two in width. So in that little strip, that's where the notes go, and the notes have got to be able to fit everything else you ask for. So the general trend we've had over time is to actually take things out of what we put on the notes because it gets very, very crowded. So it used to be like, for instance, that we would always show the artist and writer. We actually made that an option in a more recent version to take that out, because once you put in the notes, the storylines, all the other stuff, it was getting to the point where it couldn't fit other things, and it was really getting to be a problem. So the question with other fields like cover date, it was, well, where do we put them? So if we can find a place to put them, then I in principle, I have no objection. But that's always the tension when you're dealing with something physical like an actual label. Sorry about that. This computer's just really not cooperating. So give me just a second and see if I can get it to do an actual restart, or if it just wants to. Is it gonna? Maybe. All right. Well, anyway, we're gonna find out in a minute whether that thing's gonna cooperate or not. And if not, then we will demo on something else. Darn it! All right. So I see it. I see it cycling and making all sorts of pretty LED noises, but I'll see when it shows video again. All right. So with all that said, let's go back to other things. Let's see here. Andrew says, maybe how so you can only have a maximum number of fields selected so we can all still choose. Yeah, it's like I say, the trick with printing is especially on labels. So on reports, you're basically trying to fit things in columns. The trick with labels is a question of again, where do you stick it? If you've got designated portions of the screen that are ruled out for the label, then for a field like let's say the barcode, if you include the barcode, it's going to occupy the bottom portion of the label. Let's see. Yeah. I knew I would pay for this because I actually did all my filing and put everything very neatly away in my office before the show here, and I just knew something like this would come up where I wanted to show a printed thing and it would not be there. So yes, that just happened. All right, so yeah, that'll learn me. But anyway, so yeah, if I can figure it out, that's great. It's hard. This is one of those fields though that it's hard to just stuff into the end of the notes. At the very least, it wouldn't look great. So we could, for instance, say if we did include cover date as an optional field, we could have something which says like, well, okay, it's May 2025 or something, whatever the date is, and then put everything else after that. That might, if that's a usable solution for everyone, that's probably easier to fix than any kind of fixed position for the field. So if we can wad it in with notes, then that would be good. But yeah, write me back afterwards and let's talk about how we might be able to accommodate that. All right, and no, of course it didn't cooperate. All right, so excuse me for a minute, guys. I gotta do some mojo to make this thing go because I have a uncooperative little computer here I'm dealing with, and well, we just have to show it who's boss. All right, so. And come on. Wow. There you go. Okay. All right. That was really, really unfascinating and terrible TV, but thank you all for hanging with me on that one. And hopefully we'll get the show back on the road here. Okay. Oh, and the magnifier. Okay, got it here. So let's go ahead and fire that up. Okay, so, all right. Other things that we want to talk about here. And go ahead and let's hide the magnifier. Come on. There you go. All right. Okay. Next question we had. What the heck is Sidekick? Is literally the question that came up. Where is Sidekick? What the heck is that for? Which is a great question. So ComicBase is, you guys know the main program. very well. This is the main thing up here. That's ComicBase. There's a couple of other little programs that come with ComicBase, which do some nifty things from time to time. They're kind of useful. One's called the ComicBase Database Manager. It's a little utility program you can run. You find it under your Start menu if you're interested, which will search your whole disk and find anything that looks like a ComicBase database, tell you what's in it, and let you choose which database you're going to work from. That entire program, the entire use of the ComicBase Database Manager was to answer the technical call that we were getting from anyone who'd ever created more than one database in their life, saying, I forgot where my database is. Where is it? And the answer is, we don't know, but this program, which we will write, will search your whole disk and tell you, where your database is, because obviously you've lost down your disk. It's not like we have any special knowledge. But anyway, that's one. The other one that's really big is a thing called ComicBase Sidekick. And let me go ahead and fire that one up here because I just shut it down. So ComicBase Sidekick is a little program that runs down here in what's called the notification area. And you typically don't see it at all because typically no one's looking down here at your notification area. It's down by your clock. It's where you put the little doodads that are meant to run in the background and never cause you any trouble. And the ones that don't fit, so here you've got, your network, here you've got your volume, here's your clock, and so forth. The ones that don't fit go in this area here, which is the extras, right? And of course, it wanted to fire up and start doing stuff. So what this is doing here is, and sorry, I'm actually gonna, I'm losing all patience for dealing with any kind of demo computer stuff right now. I'm just going to fire it up again and pay attention to me. We're demoing now. We're not doing work right now. We're just working. This is Sidekick. He's the one that looks like a little superhero guy. So if you open him up, what he does is he's meant to act as your assistant, right? So just like you're the superhero, he's the guy fetching you coffee. The idea of this one is that he's going to do all the things that you need done with ComicBase that are kind of boring, which is to say, he can update your database for you. He can check for, if you sell on Atomic Avenue or buy things, he can check for your new sales and purchases. He can post your updates to your inventory on Atomic Avenue. He can back up your stuff to the cloud. This one winds up being pretty darn key. And one that used to be very important and isn't very important anymore is optimize your database. When we had a different database engine in ComicBase prior to ComicBase 2020, optimizing your database was something that was super, super, super critical. And now, actually not really particularly interesting, but we left the feature in there because people got so used to doing it. But of these ones, Sidekick, the main thing he's doing here is this is a program that runs in the background. And so when you're not using ComicBase, so in other words, you'll notice now at the bottom here, some functions are available when ComicBase is running. So when you're not using ComicBase, when you just have your machine turned on and you just leave it at night, he's meant to run like the shoemaker's elves in the middle of the night on a schedule that defaults to, late. But you can set it right over here in the schedule tab. But I guess this machine, at 11 p.m. was a good time for it to start doing things. But what he'll do is he checks for updates. He set to check and he doesn't check and post sales, but he'll save your stuff to the cloud and compact your database. And he'll start doing this one, every day or every week at a particular time, and you can control all this stuff. And what that's meant to do is just take the load off of you, so that every time you sit down and you're actually ready to use your computer, stuff is ready to go. Now, there's one other thing about Sidekick that's really pretty key. Now, remember I said at the beginning, ComicBase is real Windows software, and so your data is living on your machine, which means it's yours. You're not renting time on our server in order to store your stuff. You're controlling your stuff. But it is still useful to be able to use our servers to do extra cool stuff, like, for instance, downloading weekly updates, right? That's something where we put them out on our server, and if you've got a current subscription to ComicBase, you can download new content and pricing every week and keep up with all the market prices. That's pretty neat. But another thing that's key is when you save it to the cloud. So in other words, you can back up your local database to our cloud, which is an area of our servers that's set aside for you. You've got a couple gigabytes that's just with your name on it. When you do that, you've done a couple of nice things. One is you've saved your data someplace which isn't your machine. This is actually super important because things happen to your machine. We've heard them all. We've heard tornadoes, fires, floods. jealous ex-wives, people who just hard drives fail, whatever the thing is, your machine will eventually die, and you do not want the one and only copy of your data to be on it at that time. You want it to be saved someplace else, because you put a lot of time tracking your stuff, and you want to make sure it's saved someplace other than your computer sometime. Well, when you save to the cloud, you are saving a copy to our server. And so if anything ever happens to your copy, you can always download it back again from there. But another thing that's really neat about it is we actually also will take that database you save us, look through it, and and basically update a set of database tables, which again are private to you. You're the only person who can see this. But we can have basically a database copy of your information, which we then can give you on the mobile app. So in the mobile app, if you pull that up on your iPhone, your Android, or whatever else, you can actually pull up and now go searching for just your inventory. And so you can flip through and just very easily see everything that you've got going on. And the whole glue that makes this all happen is Sidekick. So Sidekick, that little program that runs when ComicBase isn't running, is taking your database and copying it up to our cloud, when you say save to cloud, and making, so that, you can see things from, the servers, and have your data backed up and so forth. So one thing that's kind of neat that we've done just recently is, in order to kind of automate this a little bit better, we've added a new version, a new option to ComicBase. Going back under setup, and when you go to preferences, when you're looking down at the preferences, you'll see here that there's a section here about automatically back up your database when you close the program. Okay, the default is that's checked, and it's going to save 5 physical backup, copies of your backup. They're all time stamped. So if you say, oh yeah, I did a crazy change to my data last Tuesday, let me go back to last Tuesday, you can go ahead and do that. But I mean, this is all great. That's been in the program forever. We've had, I don't know, 10 years ago, we had the option to compress those backup files to save space, because the database files can be kind of big. They can be a couple, 3 gigabytes in size, depending on how much stuff you're saving. And if you can take a few minutes and compress those, you can make them into just a few hundred, kilobytes, and so, I mean, probably about a fifth or so of their uncompressed size. Well, one thing that we did in the last version of ComicBase 2025, is we actually look at your computer and we say, all right, how buff is this guy's computer? So if your computer is if it's got a decent number of cores, which is the physical processing units that carry out work on your computer, if it's got enough horsepower under the hood to work with, we actually turn this to default to yes. We actually, if you hadn't set, if you're just installing ComicBase new, we're going to make it so that if you have a powerful computer, this is going to default to yeah, it's going to compress. And when you exit the program, it's going to save your backup and then start the compression job. And then for 30-40 seconds, depending on how powerful your computer is, it'll compress that down. And then what you're left with at the end is a much smaller file. Well, if you've got that set to compress, there's a new option we also added in ComicBase 2025, which is to automatically save to cloud, which is, if you have, and you have to have it compressed in order to save it to the cloud, because otherwise the very first thing it's going to want to do is compress it. And that does take some time, especially if you have not a buff computer. But if you have a ComicBase set to automatically save to the cloud, then every time you exit the program, you go off, do other things, browse the web, read email, fire up a game, whatever you're doing. In the background, it sends off a request to Sidekick. First of all, it compresses the file, using a compression program, but then sends off a little request to Sidekick saying, oh, hey, as soon as I'm done compressing this, could you send that up to this guy's cloud? And then if you've done that, then again, really neat stuff is 15-20 minutes after you've exited the program, you'll notice that all your online inventory has all been updated. All your stats are updated. If you're browsing with the mobile stuff, you're looking at all your brand new data. And more importantly, you've got a backup from 10-15 minutes ago when you go and you check for backups. So in case something happens to your machine. This also winds up paying off. It not only makes the integration with the mobile program quite a bit tighter. I mean, it used to be we would wait for ComicBase to back your stuff up once a week. This makes it so it's saved basically every time you save. So if your machine can handle it and if your internet can handle it, it's a really cool thing, and it really does make everything much tighter in your life as far as working with ComicBase just from anywhere. But the other thing that's really cool about this one, and I do, sorry, mental note to myself, I did want to say, let's talk about how you can, tell whether the speed test is there. The other thing that's really cool about this one is if you ever move ComicBase to a new computer, makes it just a cinch. And that was my next topic, which I had to say is, what happens if Santa got you a new, computer for Christmas? And let's talk about that one. So if Santa got you a new computer for Christmas, and you can tell how long I've been blowing off this question, or actually getting distracted and running long on all the other shows, because this was meant to be pretty much our New Year's show. If Santa got you a brand new computer for Christmas and you want to move your data over from one version of ComicBase to the other, if you've been using ComicBase 2025 on kind of a modern-ish computer, one that had the auto backup set on, then the answer is perfection. Basically, just go install, go to your account, my account registrations at comicbase.com, download the software, double click, run the software. When you double click to run it, it's going to install everything. And then the very first time it launches on your brand new computer, it'll say, oh, hey, I noticed there's a cloud backup you saved from half an hour ago or yesterday or whatever the thing is. Do you want to start from that? Because if you do, then it just downloads your most recent backup from your last computer, pulls it up from there, opens it up, and you're good to go. It's like you don't have to do another thing. You're ready to rock and roll. All right. If you don't have automatic save to cloud, up, or if you haven't saved one recently, and you want to start up on a new computer, it's kind of the same idea, except in that case, what you're going to do is, instead of saying, it's not going to tell you that you have a cloud backup, or if the cloud backup is there, maybe it's too old or something. In that case, what you mostly want to do is you want to make sure you've saved the copy of your ComicBase database, which lives on your old computer. You need to save that to like a USB thumb drive or something where you can carry it over to the new machine and then open it up from the new machine. And that looks a little bit something like this. Let's go ahead and show that. I'll go ahead and switch my keyboard over so we can actually control that computer. All right, so let's say this is my old computer. All right, and I've got my collection over there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my old computer. I'm going to stick in a USB thumb key. I'm going to, which is, one of those little USB thumb drives. And it's probably got to have a minimum of about 4 gigabytes free on it. So if you have one that's like 1,000 years old and it doesn't have 4 gigabytes on it, spend the $5 it'll cost you and get one that does. It's really the best way to go on this thing. I mean, there are other ways of getting your data around, but a USB drive is by far the simplest. Just go into the file menu, say save a copy, and do this while you're looking at your old machine, just so you know you're saving the right data. And at that point, what you're going to do is you're going to go, and it'll ask you where you want to save it. You're going to go and select your thumb drive. Here, I'm just going to put it, say it's my desktop, but you would be selecting your thumb drive. And then you're just going to, instead of saying save copy of my collection here, let's do one little shortcut here. Let's just save it as just my collection. Get rid of the copy of, because this is a special one-time kind of thing that we're going to do, and this will save us a little bit of time later on. You're going to hit save, and then it's going to save the copy of your database onto your thumb drive, and it'll reopen the database, and you'll be right back here. This is still on your old machine, right? And at that point, you're going to exit ComicBase. You're probably going to shut down your machine because you're done with your old machine at that point. And then you're going to walk over to your new machine where you've just installed ComicBase. And if you've done this before, it asks you that question of, hey, is there a database you'd like to open? If it's asking you, okay, did you want to start a new database or did you want to open an old one? If you just stick in that thumb drive and say, I want to use this database right over here, then it'll go ahead and copy it from there. It'll put it in the ComicBase databases folder on your drive, and you're good to go. That's certainly a very easy way to go. If you've missed that question, let's say that you just, let's say you'd started a new database, but you hadn't really meant to. The thing you'll want to do is just on your thumb drive on that computer, go up to, go and locate it on your machine. You'll see the thumb drive will be over here. You want to grab the thumb drive, open up, find your, the copy of my collection or the my collection that you've got over there. And then you want to right click on it. You want to say copy, and then you want to choose where to put it. And the place you're going to want to put it by default is in the ComicBase folder, ComicBase databases, and you're just going to right click and just say paste, and you're going to paste it right there. And you'll see it will move the file from your thumb drive onto there. At that point, just double click and it'll open up ComicBase and it'll open up your database and you'll see all your stuff and everything is good to go. So that's pretty much the deal on that one. So with that all said, though, you can see it's a lot easier if you had that save to cloud. If that's been turned on the whole time, it saves you a bunch of steps, and it's definitely well worth doing. By the way, if you ever forget, if you do need a step-by-step on any of this stuff over here, if you go to comicbase.com, there's under support, and I'll go ahead and show you this one. This is another really good source of information. Let's go ahead and pop up to comicbase.com here. So if we look under support, and we look under tips and tricks, I think it's the third one down here, moving your ComicBase to a new computer here. We'll give you the step-by-step of how to move all your stuff over. And it basically comes down to install ComicBase, copy that file over, and you're good to go. But if you do want just kind of your handheld through the whole thing, this will take care of that for you. And so that's another good way to go. And if you feel like it, definitely check out the tips and tricks section over there, because there's a lot of neat stuff there you can learn as well. All right. Other things that I wanted to get to here. Let me do a time check. How are we doing? Ooh, we are getting close. So I'll get time for one, maybe two more. Let me check the chat real quickly and see if there's anything else that we need to do here. Okay, we have got that. Okay, great. All right, one thing I did want to say finally about the save to cloud, and this is kind of important, is I'm a big fan of the whole save to cloud thing, provided your computer is fast enough and also your internet speed is buff enough to pull it off. And so how do you know whether your internet speed is any good or not? There's a site called speedtest.net. Not sure, is it Ookla or something runs it? Anyway, doesn't matter. It's absolutely fantastic. Definitely check this out. And honestly, whatever you're paying for internet, periodically just go to this site and make sure that you're getting what you're paying for in terms of like the speed. If you click on this one and just hit the big go button here, it's going to ask your location. It'll figure out what the nearest place to test against is. Go ahead and say yes. You can ping my location. Right here, Chapel Hill, Tennessee is where my ISP is from. And this is through our firewall right now. This is the down speed I'm getting. It's about 1,500 megabits down, so no complaints on this one. And then here's the up speed. And hey, I'm even happier about the up speed, mostly because this is that rare case where like my up speed is actually better than my down speed. Mostly it has to do with the fact that I have 2 gigabit Ethernet coming in here, and the down speed is actually limited by my firewall, whereas the up speed less so. But that's great. 1,859 up, absolutely. If you've got speeds like you're rocking anything like that, or honestly even anything like a quarter of that, by all means, I would encourage you to say save to cloud is a definite win for you. If, on the other hand, you're looking at your up speed, and in this case, the up speed is the only part that matters to you, because that's how fast you can push information from your computer up to the internet, and that's what you're doing when you're saving to the cloud. If you've got a number on that that's, say, less than about 25 megabits per second, which some people, especially in rural areas, or if you're using like old-fashioned satellite hookups and things like that, if you get something like that, honestly, I probably would just turn it off, because it will take forever to send the thing up to the cloud. I mean, you can certainly do it. I mean, it'll do it in the background. It's not hurting anything per se, but it's gonna, it would make me halfway crazy, the fact that it took 40 minutes to save the file. 40 seconds is a much happier number. But yeah, definitely check out speedtest.net. And if you're paying, if you call your internet provider and they say, well, how fast what am I paying for in terms of my down speed? If you're on cable, typically you'll get 2 numbers. They'll say, well, you get 300 megabit down and up to 30 megs up. That's actually pretty typical for cables. It's much faster coming down than going up. Fiber tends to be what's called symmetrical, where it's the same speed both directions, which is great for you in this case. It's that rare time that when you're actually saving a lot of data to the cloud. Most people, the reason cable works the way it does is it's very good at pulling stuff down very fast, and the up speed is not terrible, but it's not great. And so it tends to be a tiny fraction of what you're getting on the way down. So back, for instance, before fiber came to our area of Holly Hill, Drive in Franklin, Tennessee, before that came to the area, we were buying the buffest cable plan that could ever be had, and we were getting like 40 megabits up. And now we have, the second buffest internet plan that the fiber guys are pulling down, and we're getting basically 2,000 megs each way. Fiber is wonderful if you can get it, but if you do have an up speed that's really, really, really bad, consider turning that one off. But in any case, look at what you're paying for, look at what they're giving you, and call them up. It's definitely your cable company. There are things, if you're not, there could be problems with lines, issues on your light, and there could be problems inside your house, whatever else. But they can do a lot of testing just if you call them up and say, hey, I'm paying for this, I'm getting something far less than that. And there's a lot they can do that will make your life just far better, just for the sake of a call. And the other thing that cable companies, I've noticed in particular, do, which is not particularly nice of them, is, let's say they've rolled out a brand new cable service to your area that's 3 times faster than what you signed up for a couple of years ago, at the same price. They're not going to tell you, and they're not going to upgrade your line until you scream at them. They're just going to keep you at the old speed and the old provisioning until you call and mention, wait a minute, you're giving new guys this thing is far faster. How do I get on that one? It's like, oh, well, you have to re-sign up for your plan. They don't just upgrade you. So anyway, it's worth a thing. So do spend a couple minutes with quality time with your cable provider. All right, last thing, I want to get to some announcements, and I promised I was going to point out what the heck the deal is with the weird little colored lines, because that one had come up. First of all, PSAs. Greg asks, first of all, anything you can share re the iOS mobile app? Nothing I can share right now, but I will tell you the thing that I'm working on pretty much around the clock these days is the mobile app, in not just the iOS. You're going to be seeing some changes all around on that one. So I think you're going to like them, but I don't want to get ahead of my own announcement on that one. So hang fire on that one for just now. But we're going to be putting some real muscle into the mobile app in the coming days. Okay, PSAs. Number one, first, do not forget to hit the like and subscribe if you like this sort of thing, because it keeps us going. We do this stuff, to try to be helpful for you folks. But yes, it definitely, if it's the sort of thing that you like, it's the sort of thing that we do. So it'll let you know when we're doing things, and it also helps us get the word around and so forth. Number two, message boards at forums.comicbase.com, and you can also check out the dedicated thread we have there for ComicBase live stream topics. So we'll be looking for that one, especially as we go towards our 200th live stream. This is crazy. And we also have a link there to Andre's world famous ComicBase cover catalog, TM. It's available on the link is on the ComicBase message boards. And also, everyone, don't forget to have a great Super Bowl weekend, regardless of whether you're hoping for the three-peat or you're hoping for the suddenly underdog Philadelphia Eagles. Who knew? But anyway, hope you guys have a good one. All right, last thing I want to get to on this whole thing is, let's talk about those funny little lines in the program with all the weird color blocks, and what the heck are they all about? It's amazing how much this comes up. Go ahead and close a bunch of web browser things, go ahead and bring ComicBase back up, and we will talk about this. All right, so you guys might have noticed that not all the lines here are black. And so what is the deal with the different colors? So the deal, and it feels like let's go to preferences, is in order to make the information easier to read at a glance, we offer you a couple different ways of looking at the item grid. So in my current case, I've got it set to financial grid coloring, which is to say it's set to shades of gain and loss. So if something went up quite a bit, it'll be a very bright green. If it's a slightly less impressive gain, it'll be a darker grain. Black means essentially no change from the previous year, and then medium and then very bright shades of red means either very, very some amount of loss, or very much a great loss. So I like the financial shades of gain loss. It honestly stolen straight out of Robin Hood in terms of being able to get an idea of that one. You also could change it to the classic. This is the one that's been ComicBase forever, the just hot and cold. And this one was stolen from Once Upon a Time back with the Wizard Price Guide. If any of you guys remember that one, where let's go ahead and do that now. And now you'll notice that my things that were bright green before are now bright red, which means they're hot. Which means to say this issue went up quite a bit in the last year. And you could look at the value graph. And if you ever see that it goes blue, that means that it has fallen in value. I don't. Oh yeah, there's a couple over here. Here's some like Spider-Man 23 apparently has fallen in value, and you can see this in the graph. Just it tips over a little bit there at the end. So, but yeah, that's what the things mean. And the other question that came up on that one is, well, hey, I had the whole stuff. What happens? Where did it all go? And in at least some case, you can go to the preferences, and if you're thinking I don't feel like having this on, or it's too much color, or whatever else, you also can turn it to none. In which case, everything will be black. So anyway, that's what happened to the one guy who had asked the question originally. But that is certainly a thing that can happen if you are an absolute monster for speed. It does take a few extra milliseconds to do the row coloring. So I guess if you just want to get the last bit of performance out of ComicBase, I guess you could turn that off. But as for me personally, I kind of like it because I like looking over my collection and see what's been going up and down. You also can control, by the way, whether it's coloring the whole row or just the price field. I like the whole row. It's easier for me to see. But anyway, that is the thing with that one. That is the row coloring. And so then we see there's our guy right over there. All right. So that is the show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I think that will do it on the Q&A for now. There was one other thing I wanted to say real quickly. If anyone is looking for the question of how to run ComicBase on your Mac, we have a special live stream on that one. It's live stream number 172. It's pinned in the ComicBase TV YouTube channel. But then the other thing is there is a code I can give you all. Parallels 10, which is PARALLELS 10. If you put the code in, it's a 10% savings for anyone who needs a Parallels license, and may as well take it because it's free. Why not? But that will give you a discount on that one. Parallels is the software you need if you're running it on modern Macs, the ones with the M2, M2, M3, M4, whatever processors, the Apple Silicon, in order to run Windows. If you're running on older Macs, the ones that still were Intel based, there you can just use Boot Camp. It's built into ComicBase, and it's free. So that one you may as well just use Boot Camp. But if you're running on the modern Apple Silicon, Parallels is definitely the way to go. I've looked at other solutions and they were not good. So all right, that's about it, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you on the next one. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll catch you then. Bye-bye.